Yes, there was a significant development on your advocacy, of course, on the South China Sea. I'm sure you listened to the president's speech. How did you find it? And what do you think? Were you surprised? And what do you think is a good follow through?
Well, we were pleasantly surprised with the speech of the president because he was very firm in asserting our arbitral ruling. It was a pleasant surprise. But of course, he has to walk the talk. And as I said, that's the national policy that he enunciated at the UN General Assembly, and that must be applied across the board in our negotiations for the Code of Conduct, in the enforcement of our sovereign rights in the EEZ, in the West Philippine Sea, and in gathering support from other countries for the arbitral ruling. It has to be consistent, and we must walk the talk.
I'm Justice Carpio.
Consider this a drastic turnaround.
Again, please.
Did you consider this a drastic turnaround for the president?
Well, the president has said from the start that he was setting aside or putting aside the ruling, but he intends to bring it up at some future time. And the presidential assistant for foreign affairs said this was the time that he brought it up. But I did not expect him to come out that strongly the UN General Assembly. But we welcome that very much because we've been waiting for that. So the question really is, what does that mean in terms of action on the ground, in terms of our approaches in the Code of Conduct negotiation, in whether we will be sending patrols now in the EEZ, in the West Philippine Sea, or we will, as you know, the Chinese survey ships were there at Reed Bank a few weeks ago. They were also in the northern Luzon, and we did not send any patrol ship to tell them that they could not do those things. We did not even send a patrol aircraft. So what is the meaning of this new policy? Will we be sending our Navy ships, Coast Guard vessels to Reed Bank, where if the Chinese conduct a survey again on Reed Bank, because they cannot do that. They are not supposed to conduct a survey on Reed Bank because only the Philippines can do that.
Yeah, Justice Carpio, you're very clear. You said next step, he has to walk the talk. He has to be consistent as well. On the consistency, people are already thinking, well, good luck with that. We know the president. We don't know what he might say tomorrow. We don't know what he might say. He might wake up on the wrong side of the bed. We don't know what he will utter in the province, in front of the military, in front of whichever audience. But on the other hand, this was spoken at the United Nations General Assembly. This was spoken with China in attendance. Just talk a bit about international law and what that means, being in that formal setting. What does that change in the character of what the president said, in the position of the country, relative to what other informal utterances the president might say from here on?
Well, the arbitral decision is final. If you bring up the arbitral decision in the General Assembly, it's basically to gather world opinion, to get the support of world opinion. It does not add to the legality. What you're doing is actually trying to enforce it because China refuses to respect the arbitral ruling. You go to the UN General Assembly to ask for the support of the other states to convince China to comply with the ruling. That is the purpose of bringing it up to the UN General Assembly. It's not to add to the legal strength because it's there already. It's to seek the support of other countries to convince China to respect and enforce the arbitral ruling.
Under the Code of Conduct, what happens to the artificial islands? What will be their status? Because they're not
the Code of Conduct, yes, the Code of Conduct is intended to manage the dispute so that there will be no tension, there will be no skirmishes, there will be no firing, but it is not intended to settle who owns those
Yeah.
islands.
Hmm.
It does not settle the substantive issues. The substantive issues on maritime matters will be settled under UNCLOS, and that has been settled already between China and the Philippines. But as to the substantive issue on who owns those islands, that's not the intention. That will not be addressed in the Code of Conduct, because Code of Conduct is merely to manage the dispute so there will be no shooting
Hmm.
as,
Okay.
as while the substantive issues will be addressed in some other way. So that is
Hmm.
the Code of Conduct, so that the states will just behave
Hmm.
pending resolution of the substantive issues.
Justice Carpio, this question, I imagine if I ask this question of anybody else, I'm just asking them to speculate. But you are one of the real scholars. You're an avid watcher of this development. You've been advocating this for years. So here's the question that we're hoping you could take this beyond the realm of speculation. Why now? You've been wanting this government to take a stronger position. You've been wanting President Duterte to say what he said at the UN General Assembly. Why now, 4 years later? What happened in the international arena? Were there any developments in any of the things that we've been talking about in UNCLOS, in Asia, that you think might have triggered this development?
Well, I can only speculate. I have not
Mhm.
mentioned this, but let me mention it here now. It's just speculation, by the way. Uh, you see, the president said, I am setting aside the arbitral ruling so we can get loans, investments, tourists, pogos from China. In other words, let's set aside the dispute and just trade and get investments from China. So what has happened now? $24 billion have been promised by China. Less than 5% has materialized, and we have less than 2 years to go. China has also an economic problem because of the pandemic, and I do not think nobody believes that the 24 billion will materialize those loans and investments. So that's gone already. The tourists are not coming because of the pandemic. They will not come in the next
Mm.
more than 12 months. The pogos are closing down. The Chinese government is canceling the passports of pogo workers in the Philippines, so they cannot come back here anymore. So what else? So
There's
I think
little to lose.
the president, this is just speculation, by the way, probably sent a message to China. You have not delivered.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. But it's a happy development as far as I'm concerned. Because, frankly, as I said, the president was taken for a ride. He froze the arbitral ruling, but he got nothing, absolutely nothing. So probably starting to recover. He by maybe it's time to assert the ruling now because he hasn't received anything substantial from China. That's the way I look at it.